think I'll make this the last early releases video of the year, because we are in March now, and I think stretching out early releases into 3, maybe even 4 months is a bit much. But I do like this series, and I do like to highlight the albums that deserve the attention that they should be getting, because there's so many albums throughout the year that just do not get enough attention, and they're actually really, really bloody good. And I feel like I'm the only man out there doing this. Where are the people doing this? You're all failing. I can't do it on my own. My back's hurting. I'm carrying the whole music industry, guys. There's so much great music, and so much of it gets not even mentioned. So yeah, it's time to bring it up in this video. And I'm going to start with a really lovely piano-based modern classical piece here from Jean-Michel Blais. I don't know how you say his name, but it's something like that. Jean-Michel is an artist who is just making some really sublime, lovely, just soothing music that just sweeps you off your feet. It's not the best I've heard in this genre, and it's not even the best I've heard in this genre this year. But does that mean it is not worth your time? Absolutely no, it does not mean that. It is 100% worth your time, and it is a really, really lovely listen. So check it out if you want some really peaceful and wonderful music. It hits that spot. Want to mention Gang of Youths next, because I think this is a really, really underrated band, to be honest. I think even by me, they've been underrated, because it was only about 3 weeks ago I listened to them for the first ever time. So I'm perpetuating the underrating of this band by only just listening to them. But seriously, their 2017 album is pretty fantastic. I had a great time with that album. I like the Heartland rock vibes that come through on that album, and I really like the slower, tepid moments as well. I think they hit pretty nicely. And the new album in some ways is kind of more of the same, which is why I would say it's not quite as good. But at the same time, considering it is more of the same, it is still a really good album. It just isn't as good as the 2017 one. But seriously, if you're a fan of bands that are bringing that kind of Bruce Springsteen-esque sound back to the modern day of music, there's so many artists at the moment that are doing that. I could list about 10 off the top of my head probably. But yeah, I think if you're into that, and you're a big fan of the Gaslight Anthem, who were doing that in the 2000s as well, then yeah, you'd like this album. And even without those comparisons, I think still it's a pretty solid rock release, to be fair, and with some really nice slower moments that are pretty lovely too. So yeah, good album. Next I want to mention SASAMI, who is an artist that I haven't heard of before this album, but apparently she was making some really standard indie type music. But this album isn't that at all. I mean, she's delved into some really odd industrial rock moments. The opening track is just such a strange track for me, because when you hear it, you think the album's going to go in one direction, and it doesn't even go in that direction at all, and it just keeps darting around these weird moments that just keep surprising you. And to be fair, at the same time, she keeps it pretty simple vocally at times as well, and it actually just ends up being a really good release. It's creative while also maintaining a pretty accessible idea and an accessible sound. It's a really cool album. I like the heavier moments quite a bit, but I also like how she just keeps you on your toes, and one track to the next, you don't really quite know what you're going to get. And even multiple listens later, I still kept feeling that. I was like, well, what's the next track going to sound like? And I was constantly second guessing it. Yeah, a really cool album, a really interesting experience in that sense as well, in that I just wasn't entirely sure what I was going to get from track to track. One of the better artists I have discovered recently has got to be Luna Lee, and I have to mention her in this video. I think this is a really lovely, dreamy, swirling, soft pop release, to be honest. I was pretty taken aback by some of these tracks. I think her vocals are so lovely, and I think the feeling that you get throughout the album isn't reinventing anything. You know, she doesn't need to reinvent anything. The wheel is already there. She can just keep spinning on that wheel. I think if you're a fan of the 2017 album from Japanese Breakfast, I would say you're going to be a fan of this, because it's got that same sort of atmospheric, lovely tone to it that that album had. And I think she is nailing the sound really well. She has a lovely voice. I think the opening track is great. The track with Som is also really good too. It's just a really nice listen, you know, from start to end. I just don't have that many complaints. It's a really lovely, lovely listen. And I think what might be the best album out of the bunch is Raveena. And I think what she's done on this album is really, really good. I think the R&B moments are really, really sultry. She vocally at times reminds me of a Kali Uchis. So if you're a fan of Kali, which you should be because Kali is really good, then you're gonna like this album. There's a track with Vince Staples. That track has just got such a sensual feeling to it. And then Vince Staples comes through with a really good verse. I think he matches the tone of the song really well, which when you hear the song at the start, you're not expecting him to bring in his verse and fit into the track. You're expecting him to cut through the atmosphere, but he doesn't. It actually really works quite well. I think what holds this album back for me though was towards the end she goes into really like soft, spoken wordy almost vocal performances, and they're just not quite as alluring. Even though she has a really good voice, you just kind of start to lose attention a bit. She takes it to the extreme with the final track, I must say, where she literally does an ASMR like 10-minute piece, which I don't know, man, ASMR has never been my kind of thing. I mean, she does have a really good voice for it. I can't lie about that. She does have a very nice voice, if you know what I mean. No, but no, she does nail it, and she's really talented, and she can do a lot with her voice. But I just loved the first like 7 or 8 or so tracks where she was just going through the really soulful R&B stuff. It was really nice, and I think her next album, I think she could probably nail it, to be fair. I think she's on her way to dropping something great. This is almost there, I would say, but even still, you should check this out, particularly like the track with Vince Staples and many of the other tracks on the album. So that's it. Like I say, this is the last one. You've been given 5 more releases here, and I've done 3 of these videos. So that means I've given you 20 albums and EPs that you might not have heard of for the first few months of the year. And there is no excuse now for you to say that you don't have enough music to listen to. I've given you so much. Listen to it all. If you haven't heard of any of these albums, please check them out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you have heard them, what you think I should be listening to as well, because I might have missed many releases, of course. I'm only one person, I'm only one man. So let me know what you guys think of these albums. Thank you as always. Do subscribe if you have not already. Have a good day. Check out my Patreon. That would be wonderful. And shout out to the people who already support me on Patreon. You are wonderful. And that's it. Goodbye.